the tender stillness before dawn, when the sky above the Greek countryside was only beginning to lighten, a soft pale glow stretched across the ridges of low hills. The air carried the coolness of night still clinging to earth and stone, and a faint breeze drifted through the small settlement nestled on the outskirts of a larger city. In a modest farmhouse surrounded by olive trees and strips of cultivated land, a man named Diodoros stirred awake. He slept lightly, as many in his position did, accustomed to rising before others, accustomed to the quiet rhythm that shaped his days. He lay for a moment on his thin pallet, feeling the roughness of woven reeds beneath him, and the faint fragrance of dry straw that filled the small corner where he slept. The walls around him were simple, built from clay mixed with straw, carrying a slight warmth from the previous day's sun. Outside, he could hear the muted cluck of chickens stirring and the first soft call of a waking goat. These sounds blended with the distant whisper of leaves rustling in the early breeze, creating a calm symphony that marked the start of each new day. When he rose, his movements were slow and steady, shaped by years of routine. His tunic, simple and coarse, hung on a wooden peg near the doorway. He slipped into it, its texture familiar against his skin. He stepped outside into the cool morning air, where the faintest light stretched across the courtyard. The sky was just beginning to brighten, its colors soft and pale, promising a warm day ahead. Dew clung lightly to the earth, sparkling faintly on the packed soil. Diodoros was one of several enslaved people who lived on this property, tending to the land and the household of a small farming family. His tasks ranged from fieldwork to tending animals to helping with the olive press during harvest season. His life was shaped not by his own choosing, but by the steady, predictable needs of the household. Yet within these boundaries, he found his own moments of quiet reflection, his own steady pace that made each day manageable. He walked first toward the animal shed, where a few goats had already begun shifting impatiently. The wooden beams creaked softly as he opened the gate. The goats greeted him with gentle bleats, their warm bodies brushing against his legs as he moved among them. He prepared a small portion of feed, scattering it into a trough. The soft crunching of grain filled the cool air, and he paused to stroke the rough coat of an older goat whose temperament was calmer than the rest. Across the courtyard, another enslaved worker named Theno emerged from a side room, her hair tied loosely behind her shoulders. She worked mostly in the household, assisting the farmer's wife with grinding grain, preparing meals, and managing daily tasks. Theno moved quietly, her feet soft against the dust as she carried a jug toward the well. She and Diodoros exchanged a small nod, nothing loud or disruptive, just a simple, gentle acknowledgement of another day beginning. As the sun rose further, the farmhouse itself began to stir. The farmer's wife stepped into the courtyard with a clay bowl of grain, scattering some for the chickens that hurried toward her with soft clucks. Her expression was calm, her gestures rhythmic and practiced. The farmer followed soon after, tightening his belt and stretching his arms as he prepared for the day's work. Diodoros joined him as they headed toward the fields. The sky had brightened to a soft gold, and the smell of warming earth drifted upward. Olive trees lined the path, their silvery leaves quivering slightly in the gentle morning breeze. The ground beneath them was uneven, shaped by centuries of cultivation. A few birds hopped between the branches, sending down small cascades of light that shimmered through the leaves. In the fields, Deodaros took up a wooden hoe. The tool was smooth from years of use, its handle warm from the sun's first touch. His task that morning was to loosen the soil around the young vines that grew in careful rows along the hillside. The earth was dry near the surface, but still held a cool firmness deeper down. Each stroke of the hoe was slow, steady, deliberate. The faint scrape of wood against soil created a gentle rhythm, a sound that blended naturally with the soft rustling of wind moving through the vines. The farmer worked nearby, occasionally offering quiet instructions, but many tasks were so familiar to Deodaros that words were rarely necessary. He had tended these fields through many seasons, watching the vines grow, the grapes ripen, the olives bloom and fall. He understood the land's quiet ways, the signs of dryness or overgrowth, the shifts in soil that guided where he needed to work. Though he did not own the ground he tended, he knew it intimately, perhaps more than the family itself. As the morning passed, the sun climbed higher, its warmth settling gently across the fields. Deodaros paused occasionally to straighten his back, feeling the stretch of tired muscles easing under the brightening sky. The farmer brought a small jug of water from the farmhouse, placing it on a stone near the vines. Deodaros took a slow drink, savoring the coolness that spread through his chest. Around him, the world held a quiet beauty, the shimmering leaves, the patterned shadows beneath the trees, the distant hum of insects beginning their daily chorus. When midday approached, the heat deepened, and the farmer signaled that it was time to return. Together they walked back along the path, passing through the courtyard as the scent of cooking lentils drifted into the air. Thino was at the hearth, stirring a pot suspended over glowing embers. She greeted them with a soft nod as they entered. Inside the house, the farmer's family sat to eat, and the enslaved workers shared their meal in the courtyard or under the shade of a nearby tree. Deodaros sat in a familiar spot where a small patch of grass grew in the shadow of a fig tree. The food was simple: lentils, olives, a piece of bread, yet comforting in its warm, earthy flavors. Thino joined him, setting her bowl down quietly. For a few moments, they ate in silence, letting the heat of the day settle into a slow, restful lull. The afternoon brought different tasks. Thino returned to the house to clean and prepare wool brought in earlier that week. She sat near the doorway, where the shade was cool, working the fibers with calm hands. The wool smelled faintly of the sheep from which it had come, carrying hints of lanolin and earth. She teased apart the fibers slowly, smoothing them into soft strands that would later be spun into thread. Her movements were gentle, unhurried, shaped by a kind of quiet patience that came from long practice. Deodaros, meanwhile, was sent to the olive grove to prune a few branches that had grown too densely. The grove stretched across a gentle slope, its trees spaced evenly, their trunks gnarled and twisting with age. The air here was slightly cooler, shaded by the dense canopy of leaves. He moved among the trees with easy familiarity, selecting branches to trim based on the way sunlight filtered through the foliage. Each cut was deliberate, the soft snap of wood echoing lightly in the warm air. The scent of fresh-cut olive branches was sharp but pleasant, mingling with the earthy aroma of the grove. As he worked, a shepherd passed nearby, guiding a small flock across a neighboring field. The soft bleats of the sheep and the melodic jingles of their bells drifted peacefully toward the grove. The shepherd offered Diodorus a friendly wave, which he returned with quiet acknowledgement. Though their roles differed, their daily rhythms often crossed gently at the edges, forming small moments of connection that helped soften the long hours. When the sun began to lower, casting long shadows across the land, the day's labor drew to a close. Diodorus returned to the farmhouse with a small bundle of trimmed branches, setting them near the shed where wood was stored for future use. His arms were tired, and his tunic clung to him lightly from the heat, but the slow breeze of late afternoon brought a comforting coolness. The evening meal was simple, shared again in the courtyard. The family ate first indoors, discussing the day in quiet voices. Outside, the enslaved workers ate together without ceremony, sharing bread, a few olives, and leftover stew. The sky above shifted from gold to soft shades of rose and lavender, each hue blending gently into the next. Diodorus watched the colors change, feeling a calm settle over him as the warmth of the day faded. After eating, he took a small jug to the well, filling it with cool water. Thino was cleaning the last of the cooking tools, wiping them carefully before setting them in their proper place. The faint glow of an oil lamp flickered nearby, casting gentle light across her hands. The sound of the well's rope creaking echoed softly as Diodorus drew the bucket up. He dipped the jug into the water, feeling its chill through the clay. The night air grew cooler, carrying with it the sense of earth, fig trees, and the distant sea wind that sometimes reached the farmland. In the quiet, fireflies flickered in the grass beyond the courtyard, their tiny lights drifting through the darkness like small, wandering stars. Diodorus returned the jug to its place and sat for a moment on the low wall near the entrance of the shed. Thino joined him after finishing her tasks, settling onto the same stone wall. They did not speak much. The silence of the evening felt natural, comforting. The faint sounds of the farmer's family inside the house drifted through the doorway, soft conversation. The clinking of pottery, the quiet steps of children preparing for sleep. The stars emerged one by one, spreading across the sky in a slow, shimmering pattern. Diodorus looked upward, letting his gaze rest on the constellations he knew by heart. Orion, with his belt of 3 bright stars, shone steadily. Near him, the faint curve of Taurus could be seen. These patterns had guided him through many years, offering a sense of continuity in a life often directed by others. As the night deepened, Diodorus felt the weariness in his limbs. He stood and made his way toward the small room where he slept. Thino offered a soft good night before heading to her own corner of the household. The air inside the sleeping space was cool, touched by the faint breath of night drifting through the small window. He lay upon his pallet, feeling the gentle, familiar texture beneath him. The sounds of the farm softened into near silence, only the occasional murmur of the goats, the distant call of a night bird, and the soft whisper of wind through the olive trees remained. These sounds formed a kind of soothing lullaby, one he had known since long before he began working on this farm. As Diodorus drifted toward sleep, he did not dwell on the difficulties of his position or the limits placed upon his life. Instead, his thoughts rested on the quiet moments, the cool breeze during field work, the soft light of evening settling over the land, the gentle companionship of those who labored beside him. His world was shaped by restraint. Yet, within the narrow boundaries, he found small islands of calm, places where the weight of his status softened into something manageable. And so, beneath the shimmering tapestry of stars, he let his eyes close, surrendering to the slow, restful rhythm of the night. Tomorrow would bring another day much like this one, another gentle unfolding of work, quietness, and small comforts. And in the steady tide of these days, the life of an enslaved person in ancient Greece found its shape, defined not only by hardship, but by the soft, enduring pulse of routines that carried him from dawn to dusk.